Hello, Professor Tsui.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you. What about you?
Good, thank you. I'm ready.
Yes, so let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're very pleased to welcome Professor Tsui, a leading expert in knowledge management. He will be sharing insights on a critical topic, retention and sharing of Tacit knowledge, challenges and opportunities. Without further delay, I will hand it over to Professor Tsui.
Thank you. So allow me to share the screen first.
Yes, you can.
Okay, you can see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do the unorthodox way of starting a video first before I even start with the title screen. So just watch this video for about 2 minutes, and then that will take us nicely into the theme of today's talk. Thank you. Solving the problem. Have they had training? Have they had degree? The education? I suppose they have. But no training is enough to prepare them for all the possible situations that they need to confront. You have this old engineer or this retired engineer, to obviously have a lot of experience that is probably not documented, because otherwise the young engineer and the training department will get their hands on it. So knowledge was undocumented, yet remains in the head of the very person. And this person obviously, by recording that experience, that tacit knowledge, it's able to to fire up the engine, and that is also the reason why he justified the cost of a significant amount of that 10,000. It's knowing where to tap. Tapping is only $2, right? Okay. So our topic is retention and sharing of tacit knowledge. Now tacit knowledge is obviously a particular kind of knowledge. I'll explain a little bit more later on. And today's talk will focus on especially the challenges, the difficulties in trying to tackle this area of tacit knowledge management, but also the opportunities if we can make some headway in this area. My name is Eric Tsui from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. Now, tacit knowledge, you probably have heard about this term before, but probably more popular, familiar to you, is the other term, the explicit knowledge. Now, to any one of you who is at least slightly interested in knowledge management, probably you have seen this diagram or read the literature that has discovered that has shown this diagram before. It's about above the sea level, you can see some icebergs, right, like the Titanic. But in fact, underneath water, there's a much bigger part of the iceberg that you cannot see, and we do not know exactly the magnitude, but you can see that definitely the invisible part that is below the water line is a lot more than what's above the surface, and that's commonly used as an analogy to describe the volume, the scale of tacit knowledge. It's a lot more than what we can document and what we can measure with regard to explicit knowledge. And the other thing is, tacit knowledge is it's not something that you can put your finger on. Sometimes you don't even know that you possess that piece of knowledge until something that triggers it. So that makes it it's more difficult to be referred, to be harnessed, and let alone to be documented and shared. So tacit knowledge is very intimate. It's very personal to a person. It's contextual, and it's very much developed, stored, sometimes subconscious to us, based on experience and practice that we have conducted. So that really make it quite distinct from whatever we can externalize, like PowerPoint, Word documents, things that we can read, things that we can write down. That's all explicit knowledge. But tacit, on the other hand, it's invisible. It's hard to put a finger around it. It's difficult to measure. There's no scale that you can measure it. And I think we all agree, or at least have a consensus, that tacit knowledge is it's a lot more than what we have in explicit. And the moment that you externalize any type of tacit knowledge, that's not tacit anymore, that's explicit. But yet, that still remains a large part of tacit knowledge in our head, and it can only be, trigger to use when there's a context. Now, before I go any further into this seminar, just to to give it a more holistic treatment, I'll take the entry point of tacit versus explicit knowledge in this seminar to go into the area of knowledge management. But in fact, if you run up your eyes over this page, there are many other perspectives or aspects of knowledge that you can, develop, knowledge management approaches, methodologies, methods, principles, tools, and strategies. Okay, it's just that, as I said, for this seminar, we've taken the entry point of differentiating knowledge, trying to do it in a simple way that, differentiate it into explicit and tacit knowledge. But there are many other perspectives you can take as well. And depending on how you and your colleagues, your organization adopt knowledge, different types of strategies, tools, systems, methodologies, and I suppose, ramifications can happen depending on how you adopt and treat the perspective of knowledge in your organization, because all the rest of it, you have to be aligned with how you actually, value that knowledge in your organization. Well, from an academic perspective, it's already, strongly proven that tacit knowledge is an extremely important piece of asset in an organization. It's an infinitely renewable piece of asset. Organizations should properly balance the attention, the treatment of tacit and explicit knowledge. That includes identification, harnessing, protection, identifying the flow, as well as document them, reusing them, applying them, and more. Okay, and those who do well, they typically would excel not just in the automation, in savings, in less repeating mistakes, but also especially in innovation. So we also know that a lot of knowledge is tacit in the organization, something like 80 to 90%. That's really an awesome figure, and very, very little of that is being documented. That's the problem, when people leave the organization, organizations are really in dire straits because people are leaving with the brain, of course, right? Whether they are departing organization, jumping to another job, or they are retiring from the organizations, or because of long-time illness or sickness or whatever, the tacit knowledge, the very valuable tacit knowledge, something 80 to 90% of the knowledge rarely documented is lost. And that is, a tragic situation to many organizations. And later on, we'll discuss about the implications of that. And many studies have already confirmed that, those organizations who can handle tacit knowledge well, they can use it as a strategic weapon and be able to lead, especially in generating competitive advantage and innovation. Look at that, while these figures remains to be proven, I think, there are reasons to believe them, at least to some scale. They make sense that good handling of tacit knowledge can enhance innovative capabilities, can reduce, the chance of repeating the same mistakes, and obviously that would enhance the productivity, automation, and many other positive things for an organization. And further academic studies have also proven that for selective industries in Poland and United States, those organizations who pay high attention to awareness and harnessing, sharing of tacit knowledge, typically, the individuals would develop better capabilities that contribute stronger product innovations and also process innovation to the organization. That's, wonderful news to organizations in the 21st century, because innovation is all we are all competing at right now. Well, to further highlight the importance of tacit knowledge, the late Professor Nonaka, only passed away a few months ago this year, and he's widely recognized as the father of KM, at least tacit knowledge management, possibly more. And Professor Nonaka has stressed that many, many times, tacit knowledge is the source of all knowledge. Again, if we make it simple, the knowledge is only tacit or explicit, then tacit knowledge certainly, is the one that can actually generate explicit knowledge, not the other way. And without tacit knowledge, no explicit knowledge can be generated. So, that sets it all. We should focus, heavily on trying to identify, harness, to document, share, and value tacit knowledge. So if that's so important, where does tacit knowledge begin? Where does it originate? How is it getting created? If I show you this picture, of a factory setting, you can see that there are different people in there, that are conducting different activities. Firstly, people in having conversations. Can someone help to mute everyone except myself, of course? Thank you. All right, so there are people talking inside the factory there, and they are, very true, conversing tacit knowledge. Nothing is written down. They just talk. It's good. And second, you can see people who are reading. They are also creating a lot of tacit knowledge, conscious and subconsciously, right? Why? Because it's the Nonaka process, the Saki process of internalization, right? They're reading something, reinterpreting that in their own mind. So that's really tacit, And then thirdly, in the background there, further away at the distance, you can see people who are operating machines, possibly practicing, routinizing, and, experimenting on something that they have read, they have tried, and continue to practice it so that, I suppose they want to become the master of it, right? So, that's what you do in a factory setting, right? So these people are also practicing, and practicing also generate a lot of tacit knowledge, like learning how to ride a bicycle, for example. You don't need to write it down. Your body, you soon become and understand how to synchronize, the balancing and so forth, right? So, three activities, at least on this picture here, illustrates how tacit knowledge is being generated by conversations, by reading, and also by practicing. But wait, we're in the real world. The real world is a lot more complicated in a factory setting, a lot more than those three types of activities here, okay? So in the real world, let's say in an organizational setting, you have individuals, they have discussions, they have meetings, they may be in projects. So a lot of tacit knowledge being, conversed among them, okay? There are leakages, of course, very, very little of that is being documented. And then the organizations may have some retention of knowledge effort. They may document some, knowledge and keep it in a repository. They may even have a search engine to try to locate it. Well, that sounds good, but there's also knowledge leakages, right? Because documenting it, storing it, still doesn't mean that it can definitely be found. So still, that translates to knowledge leakages, whether it's tacit or not. Then on the right-hand side, you can further see that, typically organizations don't exist in alone. Some organizations are, the large, multiple divisions, sometimes, multiple offices, multiple, subsidiaries in different parts of the world as well. So there are knowledge flow inside an organizational unit. There are knowledge flow across organizational units. And again, organizations do not just operate in isolation. They have to interact and interface with the rest of the world, the society. So there is knowledge flow across organizations and between organizations and the ecosystem at large as well. So whenever there is knowledge flow, you can be certain that there are leakages of tacit knowledge, and the technology is no recipe, no perfect recipe for reduction or elimination of these leakages, unfortunately. So there you go. It's a complicated situation, and I'm saying that in a real-world situation, organizations are leaking a lot of tacit knowledge, despite some are being, retained by documenting. Still, that is not a foolproof procedure to ensure that such knowledge is being properly retained and be properly retrieved. Well, you think organizations do not realize that? Of course not. Organizations fully realize that, and they have already long expressed the importance and also the pain of losing a lot of the tacit knowledge. The writings on the wall. Recent days I've also read articles that industrial organizations have tried to quantify, the consequence of knowledge leakages, knowledge loss, especially in terms of tacit knowledge. And these figures are phenomenal, as you can see. So, among other negative impacts, the risk of losing knowledge includes, not knowing how to solve the problem anymore, losing your experts about decision making, employee turnover. Again, you lose a lot of tacit knowledge because of those people left. We are, or these organizations would be forced to, or very likely, to recommit some mistakes that they have done before, or wasting time on trying to work out a solution where, for example, other teams have already solved because of the much needed tacit knowledge is not documented and shared, much like the opening video that I've shown. So, there are more, negative consequences of knowledge loss in terms of the business impact, and too many to list. Again, some research organizations have tried to quantify the figures for these losses and impact. While these numbers remains to be verified, but there's some truth in believing, at least to a certain extent, these are actually a very bad impact for organizations. About the impact on the financial bottom line, impact on the delay, impact on repeating the task unnecessarily, impact on compromising customer satisfaction and customer experience, impact on project delays, which cost money, effort, and wasting opportunities, and more. Okay. Well, in the academic space, for the last 15, 20 years, more like 20 years, there has been quite an amount of research into trying to come up with methods, tools, methodologies, paradigms to identify, to recover, to retain, and to share, tacit knowledge. And while there has been some, significant advancements, nonetheless, there is no universal solution. Principally because, again, complex knowledge, it's tacit knowledge is a complex entity, right? You can't put a finger around it. We can't, convincingly point out where it is, how to describe it. We don't have many methodologies or representation paradigms to represent them, let alone how to process them, right? We don't know how to look for them. And sometimes we are even subconscious about tacit knowledge that we actually possess until we are triggered by some cue, which reminds us that, in fact, I know about this. So anyway, I'll come back more on this very important topic later on, because these books and papers, nevertheless, have some very important contributions that we can at least summarize in our development of a composite strategy in order to try to do something about the retention and documentation and sharing of tacit knowledge. So with that in the background, I think I'm right to proceed into the rest of this topic. Here, I won't have time to cover everything, but I'll try to cover the important aspect to arouse your interest, to inspire more ideas from you, from everybody, to solve this difficult problem, and also to solicit your input at certain steps as well. Well, firstly, on challenges, I've already mentioned some, but let's go through them systematically. Firstly, is the organization are at a loss about what to do with their critical knowledge, how to identify them. No matter how resourceful an organization is, there's still not enough time, enough expertise, patience, money, whatever, in order to identify the much needed tacit knowledge, right? Remember, organizations, after operating for some time, they build up a huge amount of knowledge that is internally generated, and that's meeting minutes, discussions, policy documents, and other types of documents that is internally developed by employees in the organization, and conversations, of course. And there's, lot more the magnitude, different order of magnitude, external information, which may, from time to time, accessible to the organization. Some are in the public domain, some are information being sent into an organization, and some organizations still have to look out to identify them. But anyway, these are external knowledge, external information. Again, very little of this is being documented. So combining everything on this page here, only a very small proportion of knowledge is documented. Yet, after years or decades of operation, you can be for sure that organizational employees are overwhelmed by the type of knowledge and the amount of knowledge that they're surrounded with. You only have to think about using the search engine, the internal search engine, the intranet search engine to look for materials. There's duplications, there is inconsistencies. There are things that cannot be found, among other complications in locating knowledge just by using a search engine in the internet. So that highlights the difficulties of locating exactly what to harness. If we have to focus on tacit knowledge, we can't focus on everything, right? Even tacit knowledge, we still cannot focus on every piece of tacit knowledge. So where can we, spend our effort or best direct our efforts in order to, to properly allocate our resources for the best prospect of retaining and sharing tacit knowledge? Of course, there are solutions to that, not entirely effective, but at least there are solutions like knowledge audits and others that help to identify, the currently required knowledge and the to be required knowledge. The second challenge is silos. Everybody hates this. Silos in organizations. That means there's insufficient communications within a business unit, within a particular department. Probably there's a better flow of knowledge within that department than flow across departments, right? Because to make no mistake, we are now in the fourth industrial revolution. But again, make no mistake, many of the organizational design, organizational dynamics, they are still, rooted from the third industrial revolution. You can see this hierarchy of organizational charts here, very common in organization today, still, right? And organizational chart is one way to enforce control and governance. That's what they're designed for. Departments are designed for specializations, right? Not for sharing across departments. So therefore, as a result of this, we have silos. Silos like these pipes, water pipes, in the basement. You can see that flow of knowledge, yes, within each pipe, but flow of knowledge across the pipes, no, very, very few. Okay, so in a knowledge sense, this is very bad, right? And that's covers both tacit and explicit knowledge, of course. But again, remember, tacit knowledge makes up 80 to 90% of the total knowledge. So it is really drastic. Okay, so organizational settings like this, which is rooted in the third industrial revolutions, with lots of hierarchy, is really well suited, poorly, positioned for knowledge sharing and also enabling effective flow of tacit knowledge to be harnessed, to be analyzed, to be collected, and to be shared. Third difficulty is the extent of tacit knowledge. We've mentioned that 80 to 90%, and therefore we are overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed by the amount of tacit knowledge. On one hand, we don't know what to do with it. On the other hand, we are scared because there's so much of it, and we cannot find an entry point. And to make matters worse, you probably have read it. We don't know everything that we know. We don't know things that we don't know. And we only know some of the things that we know, and we only know some of the things that we do not know. Okay, so in other words, tacit knowledge is very much subconscious. As I said earlier, only based on some cues that luckily or accidentally trigger us to think that, hey, I actually know this, right? But that is because of a trigger. Had not been because of the trigger, then you probably not be alerted that you actually possess that piece of tacit knowledge. Then there's the familiar challenge that we are all, trying to tackle, and that is, motivational barriers, and sometimes it's intention. People are deliberately hoarding knowledge. I suppose less and less so, because today, with the internet, with digitalization, lots of information is available, and information value is depreciating rapidly. So I would kind of tend to think that knowledge hoarding is becoming less and less. People realizing that sharing is a lot more powerful than hoarding, but still, there are motivation problems and barriers to knowledge sharing. Then, of course, we have the technological barriers as well. There's no system that can properly document tacit knowledge. It takes a long time to identify and document tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge requires a deep contextual representation, and the contextual representation, while it's important, but never two contexts are the same. So therefore, it quickly renders whatever is being captured, whatever we externalize, to be compromised. So that's another problem with technology approach to tacit knowledge. Then on top of all this is the time. I mean, who would have the time to spend, so much effort, money, and time to document tacit knowledge, right? So, that it's a real problem. All the organizations I've worked with, that they always want an urgent and a quick solution. And again, that doesn't favor the thinking, the planning of harnessing tacit knowledge. Now, if all those factors are still not enough, we are having a problem of not a problem. We are constantly having a changing landscape in terms of work from home, distributed workforce, mobile workers, requiring new skills, new setup, hopping from one system to another system. So all these further complicate the knowledge generated, the knowledge required, the competency needed, the skills needed, and also the effectiveness of knowledge sharing. So these are, the further complications or barriers to effective harnessing of tacit knowledge. From our own research, we can summarize that these are the areas that are really posing significant challenges to tacit knowledge management, and you can run your eyes over it. I tend to separate them into three major areas. Firstly, it's about the nature of the knowledge. The nature of knowledge has a lot to say about the easiness, the difficulty, the time required, and the method that is needed in order to identify and harness tacit knowledge. Second is people's attitude, people's culture, norms and values, organizational context, country culture. Third one is the actual organization itself, the organizational setting, organizational design, and that, as we discussed earlier, has a lot of influence on knowledge flow and effectiveness of knowledge transfer, because many knowledge silos do exist. Excuse me. All right, so time for you to provide some input. I've listed many factors earlier about the difficult challenges in tacit knowledge management, and I'll ask you to scan this QR code and provide some input. So I'll wait for you, okay? Again, scan this QR code and you'll be able to provide input, and I'll, in a few minutes' time, share the collective response from the attendees. Thank you. I have 2 responses so far. I'm sure that there are more, and I should wait. Any more? Scan the QR code and you will be taken directly to the page that you can input your response. You can select up to 5 that you believe to be most difficult challenges in harnessing tacit knowledge. Okay, so let's see. I'm expecting more input, so hopefully you can provide further, continue to provide input, and I can harness all this at the end of the seminar. All right, so the polling is open to you continuously. Okay. All right, so people express that need to first identify the critical knowledge. Yes, lack of expertise to do it. Correct. There's never sufficient KM expertise in organizations. And people are worried about resistance to share. And you're right, cultural factors is very important in dictating or, evaluating whether tacit knowledge management can be easily elicited or not. Okay, let's look at some of the strategies and methods then. Well, on a lighter note, I'm not sure whether you have watched this movie called Dark City. It's a fascinating movie. I like science fiction. Guess what? It's about capturing and transferring tacit knowledge. In the movie, there's this crazy, captured professor, a human being by the aliens, captured by the aliens, and he has developed a method that he can extract tacit knowledge from a person's head, and then store it in a tube, and then re-inject it to another person, and that he claims to be able to transfer tacit knowledge from one person to another person. Of course, this is a joke. Of course, this is only a movie, so that's a lighter note. Well, tacit knowledge is no easy way to transfer, right? And one way to do that is to actually move away from the tools and create an environment so that people are left off their guard. They are more willing to share. It's a cozy environment. It's natural. They can build trust because knowledge is very contextual. So knowledge is only socially constructed, right? We know a lot more than what we can say. We can say a lot more than what we can write. So create that environment so that people are comfortable in sharing. It's cozy. It's an environment that can foster and build trust, and that's what really you need in order to enable tacit knowledge to be transferred, to be elicited. I admire this project. I hope it's in Morocco and other places as well. It's coming to Hong Kong as well. The Human Project, originally starting from Denmark, right? So Human Project, as the name suggests, the Human Library Project, right? A library, as we all assume, it's about a place where human beings go to there to look at books, to read books, to search for papers and so forth. But the human library has no books. The human library is the place where you go and meet other humans, right? So the library organizes events. The library acts as a platform for you to connect with anyone who have certain types of experience in certain area. And, the library is the venue where you can actually, meet this person and discuss through conversations, right? Sometimes these people also give seminars and so forth. So very tacit, entirely tacit, right? So the Human Library Project is fascinating. Other established methods in a conventional way is, mentoring programs, job shadowing, also storytelling. It's a very effective method because stories, unlike just giving personal statements, they are structured to a story, and a good story structure will enable a lot of tacit knowledge to be voiced out, and people can ask detailed questions, follow up on any interesting points that you have mentioned about the story. They can follow up on the details. But still, tacit knowledge is by far, being lost a lot when people left the organization. Our own research has separately indicated these methods have been applied by many organizations worldwide to try to stem the loss of tacit knowledge in different ways. You can see that in the top 5 methods, there are people and process-based methods. And then there are organizational design or redesign. There are then a bunch of KM methods, including KM tools and technologies that can help to identify, retain, and document some of the tacit knowledge. We find that there are ample evidence of different organizations using a selective set of different methods in order to tackle partially the elicitation and the documentation of tacit knowledge. And don't forget, one of the important things that we need to know is about the types of knowledge, because different types of knowledge would necessitate different types of methods to be applied. For example, if you look at this page here, technical knowledge, then typically you may use documentations, right? Process mapping. For relational knowledge, job shadowing, mentoring, storytelling, right? Process knowledge, workflows, process diagrams, simulations, decision making, right? Case studies, concept maps, decision trees, and more. So that tells us that we have to match the type of knowledge or match the methods that is appropriate for the type of knowledge to be elicited and represented. Storytelling continue to pop up to be a very effective method because, as I said earlier, the stories has a structure. If you're here to this structure of telling a story, then people can ask you for many details about a story. Tell me what happened. Who are the roles and the agents in this particular story? What happened? What's the result of it? When did it happen? So all these details needs to be properly, communicated and documented. So through that process, a lot of tacit knowledge is being externalized. Hong Kong police, for example, it's a big fan of using storytelling. They have groups that actually regularly harness stories and writing on the Chinese Hong Kong culture here. They use this tree, which is in Hong Kong. Where the old people gather and tell stories to the young kids. Okay, so the Hong Kong police also developed storytelling books that periodically capture useful stories. Of course, they are confidential, but they are shared to the right level of staff for good reasons. Equally, and possibly more, the previously Heckle, aircraft maintenance company in Hong Kong, also are into the storytelling and story, recording in a big way. They also record a lot of stories and sharing stories, even develop a story database to document the various types of incidents or nearly happened incidents in aircraft maintenance tasks. Okay, so that new engineers or whoever come to the job, they be able to learn about typical stories that have happened, so that they can avoid previous mistakes and be able to learn about what other colleagues have encountered. Now, Professor Nancy M. Dixon, is an expert in transferring knowledge, especially tacit knowledge. And in her book called Common Sense or Common Knowledge, she actually described the different types of knowledge transfer. Now, before we discuss about that, maybe just listen to a short conversation by Professor Nancy Dixon. And I apologize for the quality of this audio. I hope they can still hear, but anyway, in a few minutes, you get a good feel about it.
How similar the context was. Like in some companies, like in Ford Motor Company, the context was very similar. How many people have ever been in an automobile factory? Well, I suppose they're even an assembly, any kind of assembly line factory. So if there's a Ford Motor Company in Germany and a Ford Motor Company in Detroit and another one in Alabama, all of them make the truck the exact same way. They put on the bumper the same way, they put on the wheels the same way, they do everything the same way, they do it in the same order, the thing that comes off the line is exactly the same, and they probably do it 200 or 300 times a day. That many automobiles are so very repetitive, and it is, and the context is similar. So if somebody in Stuttgart, Germany, learns a new way to put on the bumper, like normally they put on the bumper with 5 bolts. If this person has learned how to do it with 3 bolts, which saves 10 seconds. They can send that information to Alabama. Those people can pick it up like that, and they can put it on the new way, because the context is exactly the same. And it is easy to transfer knowledge to the context that is the same. Much easier than the context. So that's one of the things I looked at. Okay, to what extent is the context the same? That gives us a clue about how we're going to transfer knowledge. If the context is the same, very often you can transfer it by writing it down, right?
There you go. She explains about context, the importance of the context, the task, of course, and also the very team who has been performing this this particular duty or in this factory condition. So, in fact, her knowledge expands to cover the following 5 types of knowledge transfer. And she defined that as, for example, serial transfer, where the same team does another task in a similar context. Near transfer, the receiving team, that's a different team, right? Does the task similar to that of the source team in a similar context. File transfer, the receiving team does the task similar to that of the source team, but in a different context. And then expert transfer, receiving team does a different task from that of the source team, but in a similar context. And finally, strategic transfer, which refers to something that is a lot more high level. It requires adaptation to what they have learned and performing something in a completely different environment, different context by a different team. So that gives us more clues, as Professor Dixon said, about estimating the time, the difficulty, the effort that is needed in order for knowledge transfer, especially tacit knowledge transfer. What are some of the factors? Well, the nature of the task, the fluency of the team, the offering team, the sourcing team, and also the destination, the receiving team, the context, very important, the context in which the task has to be performed. That that's extremely pivotal in dictating the effectiveness and the time needed for knowledge transfer. Well, you may recall some 4 or 5 years ago when COVID first started, every country is desperate to get a vaccine. And China helped Serbia, a Eastern European country, a lot by flying over, something like 500,000 vaccination dose. And not only that, but also 6 specialists from mainland China to Serbia to help Serbia to roll out their vaccination program. In fact, it was so successful in a short period of time, Serbia was able to vaccinate 500,000 of its population. And in fact, Serbia is the first country in Europe to have achieved the vaccination target. But that would be a kind of, near transfer. Why? Because, China sends a 6-person specialist team. These are all experts in specific areas. And China also gives out a lot of machinery, equipment, vaccines, and so forth. So, the team of 6 people are able to teach the receiving team, the medical and the services team in Serbia, to replicate what they have done in mainland China, in a very similar way, and using same equipment and same vaccines and so forth. So this is a kind of a near transfer, which works beautifully, saved a lot of lives, and it was also completed in a short period of time. Well, David DeLong, in his book on lost knowledge, also covered more detail about the importance of the factors that affect the effectiveness of knowledge transfer. In this table here, you can see that DeLong separates into different types of tacit knowledge, tacit and implicit knowledge as well. And in the vertical dimension, you can see that David DeLong has aligned the different types of knowledge transfer method that can be applied to enable knowledge transfer of that particular type of knowledge. Now, also notice that although it's all in gray, but in different areas, in different level of intensity. So DeLong also states that these methods are effective to varying extent. So they are not the same, and they sometimes they work better in certain areas for certain types of knowledge than others. Furthermore, in this table, also another table in DeLong's book, it also reminds us about the time needed to learn about a technique, the time needed to effectively apply the technique, so that we can start to see positive results from that particular technique. So therefore, there's really no magic formula to knowledge transfer. We need to understand about the nature of the task. It depends on the competency of the team, especially if they have to learn something new. It requires understanding of the context, right? The type of knowledge, and also the very method. Not only you have to pick the right method to apply, but you need also be conscious and take into consideration the time to learn that method, the time to practice the method, and for time for that method to start yielding positive outcomes. Well, I've tried to summarize some of the parameters that we have presented in the past 3 or 4 slides and condense it into this page. So you can see that, for example, storytelling, it's definitely one of the techniques that is effective of enticing, sharing, and documenting tacit knowledge, right? It takes anything between 1 to 3 months to start seeing some positive results. It's of medium effectiveness, right? And it is an engaging method. It's very contextual. It allows details to be asked and document, and it preserves nuances as well as emotions. So if that's something that very appropriate for the type of knowledge that you need to elicit, to document, and to share, then storytelling could be an effective method. So you need to apply this reasoning to every type of knowledge that you would like to transfer, okay, in order to ensure the maximum chance of success with effectiveness in the required period. That's what I mean. Now, I've also read about these techniques, although I have not personally, experienced them. That's reverse mentoring and generation bridges. Basically, to pull together people who are experts in a certain particular area, irrespective of the age and demographic profile, and people who are desperate in need of learning those skills. And that could be, technical wizards, who typically are young people, right? And get them to help people who need help in getting up to speed with some new technologies. Equally, it pays to have, mixed generations in a team, project team, innovation team, because, you would have a fountain of ideas and diversified ideas in this kind of sharing as well. So do explore them. Well, technology is another piece which can often be a challenge for hindering effective tacit knowledge transfer. And to the best of my knowledge, some of the technologies that can enable tacit knowledge sharing are, of course, collaboration tools. Linking people together, enabling them to share, consciously and subconsciously, tacit knowledge or explicit knowledge by bulletin board and so forth, as well as various types of AI systems and knowledge mapping tools as well. So these are tools that support communities, especially online communities where you can't have every member meeting everybody, in a physical setting all the time. So somehow you need to use technology to bridge at least two gaps. One is the geographical divide, and also the time, the time zone differences. So these two divides typically can be bridged by the use of appropriate technologies. So technologies including bulletin boards, search engines, commonly browse engines, browsing a common web page. That's what I mean. Also the file storage areas, as well as other types of features in collaboration platforms. Knowledge mapping tools has also been popular especially in large organizations, because these tools are typically expensive, large scale, and require deep expertise in order to drive them. Nevertheless, if you can master these tools, then they have proved to be effective in the retention or elicitation and retention of certain types of domain-based tacit knowledge. Typically, they define the conditions for which some knowledge can be applied, how it can be applied, what are the subsequent consequences based on certain conditions when you apply this knowledge, and that's all can be documented in terms of decision trees, rules, conceptual diagrams, and more. But my experience with these tools in my career has been they tend to involve a lot of effort in order to recover or reverse engineer such type of knowledge, and it takes a great deal of effort to maintain them as well. So while that appears to be useful, its future remains to be decided. These are some of these tools, although I have not personally experienced these three. That's Creately, Tetra, and KM Insider. Now, let's not forget, once again, knowing about the different types of knowledge has a lot to say in guiding us to select the appropriate knowledge transfer method. So, we should not forget about explicit knowledge. Remember, our entry point to this seminar here is tacit versus explicit knowledge. So, for some knowledge, especially if the external factors do not change readily, frequently, then there may be merit in documenting them because they remain pretty static over time. So codification remains an effective method. The late Professor Max Boysot talking about the iSpice, which is similar to Nonaka's second model, because the iSpice created by Professor Boysot also explains how knowledge is being created, diffused, codified, and absorbed by others, as well as leakages inside an organization. So he's of the same view that certain knowledge can be codified and hence retained, at least partially, in an organization, although the large proportion of knowledge is dissipated and lost in the flow. So fundamental principles of knowledge management tells us that many organizations go for the at least partially go for the codification approach, which is trying to document tacit knowledge into a codified form and then share it out widely, keep it up to date, and make sure they can be retrieved and reinterpreted by human beings when they read it, and then hopefully can apply what they have just read from the repository. So this is typically the codification approach. You need a process to harness what you want to capture. You need a team to vet the material to make sure that they are valid, they are true, and they continue to remain valid. Okay, and then you probably have to create the metadata as well as the information classification in order to put them in the right location, in order for the search engine to retrieve it quickly, so that people can find it, or it can be automatically sent to people in case they need to access such knowledge. This is some examples of a repository, a document repository that contains codified assets. For example, you can see on the first column there, it can be lessons learned, it can be good practices, incident reports, and others. Okay, so this is typically a repository that contains the codified knowledge. All right, in the light of time, I should talk about some case studies before finishing the seminar. And let me just talk about our own work first. And this is one project that we have done in Hong Kong, a battery company. We went in to examine this battery company, and it's got a high turnover of employees, especially in the age range of 25 to 40. So young employees. With some experience, right, or considerable experience. But the company over the years have also had layoffs due to automation, cost cutting, and also facilities moving to mainland China. So unfortunately, some people were sent away from the organization. That's a loss of tacit knowledge, as we all agree. Well, naturally, there are also people retiring periodically, as well as people leaving the organization, joining other organizations, and so forth. And there's further group of people leaving Hong Kong, migrating to other countries. So they also left the organization as well. So when you combine all this, it does translate to unfortunately a significant population on a regular basis. So something needs to be done about this. So we first attempt to try to identify the types of knowledge that is still critical for the organization to harness, critical for the organization to retain, to store, and share. And we came to the conclusion there are three types of knowledge that are crucial for the organization that we could focus on. The first one is the technical knowledge, and typically these are held by the subject matter experts. Right? These are people who are specialists in those areas. That's their forte. Okay, so that could be research and development knowledge. It could be technology, product, services knowledge. It could be manufacturing processes knowledge as well. Secondly, there is also knowledge about relationship and networks, and they contain internal networks. In other words, people who know about who else in the company is working on what sort of project. These could also be external networks, knowing about who in the industry is a very knowledgeable source in particular area. The customers, Who are your major customers? How do you reach out to the customer groups? How do you reach out to people who speak positively for your company, and so forth? So access those networks, customer networks, advocacy group, internal organizational memories, and more. These are all very important knowledge as well. And thirdly, administrative and operational work. Of course, as the name described, that is about how to get things going inside the organization, knowing about the processes, knowing about how to enable things to be carried out more economically, faster, more effectively, striving for continuous improvement, and so forth. So with the 3 types of knowledge identified, we further, with the help of the HR department, look at the age of various employees, and look at the competencies, the skills, the various projects that employees have worked on, and then correlate with the types of knowledge that we have prior identified. All right, so we can then identify if in the hypothetical situation, if the employee leaves, are there other people who can fill in their roles, or this is the person who holds the only type of knowledge that is in the organization. There's a critical part. In other words, if we lose this person, then no one else can perform this task anymore. That's very, very critical. It's more like a bottleneck. Okay, so with all this information documented, we are in a position to identify and prioritize the list of employees that we can spend resources on in order to do something about retention and hopefully storing and transfer of tacit knowledge. So eventually, we identified a list of employees that we should target, and we target, and we formulate with knowledge retention strategy individually for each of these employees. So this is a concise diagram that basically summarizes what I've just said, and you're welcome to download this paper that we have published in the Vine Journal of Knowledge and Information Systems, Knowledge General and Information and Knowledge Management Systems. I beg your pardon. And you can find our paper, you can download our paper, you can read all about it. Well, of course, there are many other case studies as well. Just a quick one, Chevron, a U.S. oil and exploration company, and they focus on retention of tacit and explicit knowledge, realizing that tacit knowledge is a lot more difficult. They need to assign different types of process and people-based methods to obtain and share knowledge with their knowledge that is came up from their experts, right? Whereas the explicit knowledge side, they use the codification approach. So what I have shown here on the right hand side is basically a toolkit, a knowledge management toolkit that typically contains a list of the people process-based methods as well as the technological oriented methods. So I'm saying that Chevron intelligently and carefully apply appropriate methods, be it people-based, process-based, or technology-oriented methods, to attend to different types of knowledge with effective results for knowledge retention. Also in the public domain, it's well documented. Several large companies like Toyota, Siemens, and a few others, they are very, very successful in tacit knowledge management. And in particular, Toyota, is very good in terms of job rotation, scheduling, and effective on-the-job problem solving. They have this philosophy called JIMBA, which advocates collaborative problem solving on the spot. People are discussing about how to solve a problem. There's a lot of tacit knowledge being exchanged, and through that, knowledge can be consolidated and shared with more people. What is also obvious across many of these, well-reported case studies is communities. I'm sure you have heard about communities, in particular, communities of practice, which is, supposedly a vibrant group of people drawing from different parts of the organization that contains, people who are very knowledgeable in certain areas, but it also contains people who are, hungry for knowledge in certain areas as well. So that's why, if you can bang these two groups of people together, assuming that, there's the willingness to share, then it's, you're really having a magic result, because On the one hand, people are desperate for certain types of knowledge. They are hungry about it, because they need to know in order to perform the job typically, right? And on the other hand, you have a group of people willing to share and willing to help. So, successful communities are, a very, very effective weapon for tacit knowledge transfer. And typically, you don't need a lot of technologies around it, right? Of course, in a realistic case, you probably need collaboration too, as I mentioned before, because not all members, especially in large companies or even in medium-sized companies, not all members in a community would locate in the same location, right? And even that, even if they locate in the same location, they may not have the same time availability to attend meetings. So, there needs to be some technological support to bridge the geographical and timing divide. So there you go. As I have presented earlier, technology for online communities become very, very effective. Okay, I'm going to wrap up this section just by saying that when I read through all these success cases in tacit knowledge management, one can conclude that trust is a very important factor. Without trust, people may not be sharing willingly. So that would definitely compromise or even defeat the whole purpose of knowledge sharing. Well, doesn't matter whether it is tacit or explicit knowledge management. Trust is very much needed. Cultural integration, transcultural knowledge is also very important. Different culture would affect the way that knowledge can be shared and willingly be shared. Therefore, being able to appreciate intercultural knowledge, being able to adjust to the norms and values of different cultural groups are also very, very important. Then, as we discussed before, methods have to be appropriate. They may have to be adapted, customized in order for it to be effective. We have to match the right method with the right type of knowledge. Leadership is also very important. Always important because every staff wants to see leaders are fully supporting it, not just verbally, but really getting to see leaders are also using it, sharing it, and rolling up the sleeves and with deep participation and contributions as well. And of course, taking the engineering approach, this is not a one-off initiative. It's a continuous journey, and that journey we need to collect feedback and we need to improve in a continuous way. So finally, let's look at how the future of tacit knowledge management will pan out. And right now, I think the future is very much dictated with the resurgence of artificial intelligence, and I can see that three good things are happening if we can manage what we do carefully. Firstly, with the help of AI and data science, a lot more tacit knowledge can be harnessed because we are accumulating a lot of data, and AI can actually discover if there are trends, patterns, weak signals, nuances across these data and be able to alert us. We will have to verify them, of course, but that's a lot better than the way and the extent that we're losing out on documenting tacit knowledge right now. Second, immersive learning. I'm sure you have heard about or even tried some of the extended reality tools like virtual reality, augmented reality, metaverse, and more. Now with AI, fictitious scenarios can also be generated, and it makes our learning, our experiences far more surreal. And that is a good thing because it will entice us. We will put us in a natural environment which we can better experience about what we want to try, what we want to learn, and that way more tacit knowledge will be flowing, and that is a good thing. And thirdly, you may be using it right now. The AI could be listening to what we are talking, what we are typing, what we are discussing. And like in some of the online collaboration too, I'm not sure about this one, but I use Zoom as well, and Zoom does it. You can turn on AI to listen in the background about what we have discussed in the Zoom session, and then you would meticulously document it, summarizing it, linking the various points, generating the after action list of activities that individuals would have to do, right? So this is Again, after further review and rectification, this would be a great asset because previously it would take us a lot of effort in order to codify this tacit knowledge. But now with AI's help, we are automating this step. Although that it's not taking away our own checking and critical thinking, we still have to verify it. But still, it's a big relief to our effort. So I think these three things, if we handle the truthfulness of the information carefully, that is checking them, applying our critical thinking, and don't let AI do everything for us. Do not let AI do everything for us. Then it should be a much better, future with the reduction of loss of tacit knowledge. Okay, finally, so my final advice is, to pay attention to your knowledge ecosystem, identify the flow of knowledge, especially the tacit knowledge, identify the critical knowledge, and start to do something about them. Your people and your networks are strategic assets. So grow them, protect them, harness them, and respect them. Right? Pick the right tool, the right method to start operationalize your knowledge transfer or knowledge retention, initiatives. Right? Don't rush it. Pay attention to the expected time to learn about a particular method, and also respect the expected period for a method to yield positive results. And again, take an engineering approach, measure progress, invite feedback, and apply a continuous improvement in your journey. Okay, before I finish, I'd like to, also give you a heads up. I'm also involved in another group called GoTKM, Go-TKM. You can look it up on the internet. And GoTKM recently have set up the 5 think tanks in tacit knowledge management. Think tank number 1, impact of tacit knowledge on organizational performance. And think tank number 2, tacit knowledge in cross-cultural teams. Number 3, technological tools for tacit knowledge management. Number 4, tacit knowledge and innovation. Number 5, tacit knowledge in healthcare. I would say that these 5 are very, very important topics, today and future, and about how tacit knowledge will affect our society. So please, if you're interested, go and look up GoTKM's website, join them, and make yourself clear that you would like to register and join one of those think tank groups. And I think they would welcome your contribution or at least participation, and you would also benefit from knowing about the leading edge development in industry, about what we are doing with tacit knowledge management. All right, so finally, just to summarize, tacit knowledge constitutes the bulk of an organization's knowledge. It is critical decision making, problem solving, and innovation. Due to organizational design, people behavior, culture, and the nature of knowledge and inexactness, tacit knowledge is extremely difficult to elicit, document, and transfer. Effective tacit knowledge management is highly dependent on the choice of methods, tools, systems, nature of knowledge, time, and the learning curve. Supporting technologies, including knowledge mapping tools, collaboration systems, online communities, AI, and of course, knowledge repositories. It's big payoff for those companies that start to manage TKM well. And finally, cultivate an environment for knowledge sharing and transfer, adopt appropriate tools and methods, and pursue continuous improvement. Well, with that, I'd like to thank you for your interest in listening to this seminar. I'll be giving other seminars under the Temkai International Talks, so hope to see you again. And this final page lists some of the recent publications on TKM. Thank you.